All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Serious Angler Podcast, where, as always, our main course for you will be talking and hopefully teaching you more about bass fishing. And, of course, that does not come without a distraction or 10 here or there. Whether you're here to learn or just hear some bass and banter, you guys are in the right spot. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbrett, and here with me is the Bassin captain and Idaho's finest, Mr. Adam Deacon. Boys, it's been a minute since it's been the three of us on a show. Life's been a little crazy. It is kind of that time of year where bassin is at its peak. But how we doing, fellas?
Great. Andy, give us the rundown.
Doing all right. Fishing could be better, but can't complain because we got the boat back, so we're fishing.
But, he has a boat.
We have a boat.
Back, baby.
He's back. Batteries in. It was nice to see on my forward-facing unit, 13.4 volts today, so the screen clarity was fantastic. Ooh. Moved all my electronics to a standalone lithium, so Smart. Image is much finer now and more detailed. So
Well, give the folks the update on the new motor and new tech, because you got some changes.
Yeah, I've done quite a few things. So got a car accident on April 1st. Well, not really. I got rear-ended by somebody who decided to tail me. So the Merc is off the Camus. Now we have a Suzuki Stealth. It actually looks pretty sweet on the back of it, the Mapalac. Moved some electronics around. Took off one forward-facing sonar unit, put another one on there. And
you can say the names, bro.
Oh, it's fine. I took off Mega Live Original 1 and put Garmin LV34. I bought a bundle. It was great. Fantastic. Yeah. It's nice. Learning how to use the unit, a little bit of a learning curve. So I went out today to figure it all out, and I'm pretty sure I have it perfectly dialed to the settings I'm going to run on Erie now. So yeah, like I was seeing with a 10-inch screen, because I bought the 10-inch bundle, I was able to see a 3/16-ounce jig at 120 feet from the boat. So I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is going to argue going to that from Mega Live 1.
Yeah.
I think even if Oklahoma we'll totally understand that. But great new product now, but it's cool to see with the Garmin, man. It would be cool to see some of the different things that maybe differ from using the Mega Live, but
yeah,
the Switch is cool. Glad to hear things are finally. Sounds like you might need to figure out the prop situation. That might be the only thing to work on, but
that's definitely the worst part. Is there's not a lot of information on the internet about like what prop to run on a 200 Suzuki Stealth. You can find it for 250s and 150s. I found some stuff on, but the 200 seems to be a spot that they tend to put them on, like center console boats or deep V's. So there's not a lot of information for props. But
call Chris Williams, man. He's just all motors.
Was told that and probably should, but basically the two issues I'm having with my prop that I have on there currently, it's just the prop we put on. I think it's a little too big. I get up on pad within like 2 seconds and running like 40 miles an hour, but I'm rev limiting out about 3/4 throttle at like 56 miles an hour. And I'm also blowing out sometimes if I have my jack plate too high or too low when I'm doing a simple turn. So I really have to slow down going around bends. My prop loses all grab. Yeah.
And you went down to a 200 though, right? Like you dropped horsepower.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another factor.
Yeah, but it's not much of a difference though from the I'm not going to have as much top end, but I actually have better hole shot with the Suzuki because they have more torque in the lower end of it, like a Merc. I forgot the exact specs of it, but basically the amount of torque the Suzuki puts out at low end RPMs is almost double the Merc Pro XS. So it grabs and gets up extremely quick, even with 2 clients in the boat. Once I figured out where I needed my hydraulic jack plate to be with the trim and everything, it's pretty great.
Awesome.
Good. Glad to hear that, man.
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Deacon, what's been the life in old Idaho?
We're trying to sling some ranches, man. We've been working really hard, traveling all over, and certainly have had some document work in between that in the office, but things are moving in the positive direction there, which is good. Fishing wise, have not been out. Fished a spawn tournament on CJ Strike a couple of weeks ago. Been a nice little break from derbies, I'll be entirely honest. although I'm excited this weekend, I am fishing Cascade, which is up in the mountains. Smallmouth, I would think, are spawning. Largemouth are probably still pre-spawn. It's just a higher elevation lake. Super healthy fishery, tons of big perch in there. And these fish get really aggressive and big. So clear water, grass, a lot of the stuff you guys are used to. So excited to get up there this weekend. Local tournament, team tournament. Those are just some of the most fun tournaments to fish, in my opinion. So looking forward to get up there and keep things going. But what about you, Bailey?
Well, I got dragged down to Hilton Head last week, and my wife held against my will, wasn't allowed to fish.
Oh shoot!
I can't. I have to say it's so hard.
No, it was fun. It was much enjoyable. It was a little FOMO though, just not being able to fish at all. But it was much needed, much enjoyed. But happy to be home and back to fishing in the north when it's a great time to be fishing in the north anyway. But with that being said, I mean, we got a great episode because a lot of the country, especially those that are in the southeast, south, and kind of in that spawn, if not getting a little bit past the spawn right now, it's kind of the premise of today's show. And so, Andy, kind of give folks a little bit preview what we're going to be talking about and who we're going to be talking with.
Yeah, we got Taylor Watkins joining us, frequent flyer here on the Serious Angler Network and every other show that we have, right, besides Kayak Fishing Weekly. But we talked about basically the 4 major patterns of the post spawn and how to target the bass, where to target them, some tips and tricks to go with it, and it might get a little buggy, a little bluegilly, and tons of good nuggets in this.
A little buggy.
Yeah.
Gonna get a little buggy. Yeah, I mean the country literally is too buggy. Mosquitoes were horrible last week. Good God, I'm still scratching everywhere right now. But with that being said, yeah, no kidding. But Deke, what's been the buzz around the industry, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, not a crazy amount of things happening, in my opinion, guys. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but as far as stuff goes, I would say just in general, fishing industries in a fairly tough space from a tackle sales component. Obviously, all this tariff risk, et cetera, is had a lot of conversations. Andy and I kind of talked about that on our last episode while you were out traveling. So I think that's still top of mind in my thought process with all of this. I think that's why we're not seeing a ton of trading going on, meaning like private equity or conglomerates buying additional brands right now. Like there's just not a lot of that going on because it's kind of like, hey, let's let this stuff settle out. But as far as the fishing side of things go, Scott Canterbury winning on Douglas Lake in the NPFL. I did not tune into much of that this weekend, but that's super cool to see. Of course, no forward facing in the NPFL events, and they live streamed it on YouTube, which is great to see. I hope that we see more of that from some of these other brands. I understand they have TV deals, and it's where the eyeballs are. Like if that's got to be top of mind with some of these guys. I mean, it's where a lot of us, certainly the 3 of us, spend a lot of our time when we're watching and flipping through stuff.
Yeah, it was cool. I got to catch a little bit of it, but with that water being up, it was cool watching a lot of guys just flipping bushes, flipping trees that are typically out of water had a lot of water on them. So seeing Canterbury flip into literally just ends of trees that maybe are in like 10, 12 foot of water.
Look deep.
That's a really cool bite. A lot of heavy line, heavy rods, fish getting jacked in the face. So it was a cool one and it made total sense why Scott Canterbury shined in an event like that. And shout out to the NPFL crew for a great event for at least the minutes I got to catch. And from the feedback I've heard from folks that did get to watch, the majority sounded like it was a really successful event for them. But yeah, man, other than that, I mean, it's like going back quick on the industry being kind of quiet. It feels right now like it's like a middle school dance. Everybody's just standing around with their hands in their pockets, just waiting to see what's going to happen next. No one's really doing anything. You're like, oh, this is kind of awkward. What are we doing here?
Do. That's right.
Yeah. Pretty much.
No,
Pretty much.
I agree. It definitely feels that way to some degree. Schlapper on the Sabine, baby. Another event. Obviously, super fun to watch. I caught most of that.
Glad he's got one, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah, it almost feels overdue for him to get one.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Where was it that he almost won? Was it Santee that he almost won?
Santee, Toledo, I think he was leading on
Big fish
day 2 or day
fisheries, or
3.
giant fish fisheries, and then wins on the smallest fish derby. It's cool though.
Hey,
makes sense though. Very, Mississippi grimy like, right?
Totally.
It's totally makes sense. But
yeah.
I guess the last thing we'll end on here, man, is
go ahead.
Just want to do a little call out because I'm sure some people seen it. And
should I say my pleasure?
Yeah, sure, go for it. This is not knocking, people specifically. This is just knocking the trend because I personally, and at least from a lot of folks, viewer wise and also within the industry, don't like it. But the trend of bringing bass into fast food places or whatever, just to tote them around a live well, bring them in, show them off at fast food places or whatever. Just it's got to stop, guys. Like I understand part of it of just like kind of cool. You're showing some people on the bass, things like that. But at the end of the day, I just don't think this is a good look for bass fishing. And I'll tell that to anybody. Like you've seen a couple guys post it now, and it's just I don't think it's a good look. And quite frankly, I've talked to a few folks that have even talked about in their state. Technically, you guys can get like literally tickets for doing stuff like this, especially if you're not keeping them. I guess it's one thing at the end of the day, if you're going to bring them into a fast food place and like then cook them, or like if it's a restaurant and then cook them, that's one thing, go for it. That's a catch and cook and a cool way of doing it. But I think people trying to say, oh, they're going back fine when you're toting them around a live well, and then you're walking them into a fast food place, taking videos and pictures and stuff, and then trying to say that delayed mortality isn't happening. Whether or not we can confirm if those fish are died or not, we can't, but let's be a little bit more mindful of our resource and who we're, the images of that we're portraying to the up and coming generation, people that are getting into fishing, of what's right, what's wrong, and not trying to be Mr. Buzzkill, on something when people are having fun. But like, let's remember, especially when you have an image, you have a following, the impact you can make by the reputation you set. And so just want to put that call out there. This is not against anybody. It's just the trend needs to stop itself.
Yeah, I want to backstep. Like my pleasure thing wasn't the fact that I was calling out somebody for doing it. It's just when I've seen the videos and reels, I feel like it's at Chick-fil-A, right? And 2, they don't even serve fish there. So like, why take fish into a restaurant that only serves chicken?
Oh, I mean, we can just put it out there right now because I respect the guy. It was Logan Parks that had a recent one. Okay, and Logan, I've already talked to. I like Logan a lot. I respect the hell out of Logan, and we had a great conversation about this. But yeah, that's why you said my pleasure, because it was Chick-fil-A, and Logan being creative had the caption of Mike. I'm pretty sure his caption was Mike.
It was the caption, but I'm just saying, like, I've seen, I think 1 or 2 reels of it too out there, and it seems like the only.
Oh, there's more than just that. Yeah, there was many people doing it before.
Kids doing it, looks like.
I'll tell anybody to their face that I don't like it. I told Logan, and like it's just that's just at least my opinion.
No, it's
going out
look, right? I mean, like I don't know. To me, the fishing and hunting industry gets a lot of crap from outsiders, and I'm not saying that in a negative light. Yeah. Everyone's entitled to their opinion and kind of things, but I can't stand poaching, and I can't stand situations that make the industry look bad because it hurts all of us, all of our image. And when, situations like this, it's not ethical, right? It's not fair to the fish. I understand there's arguments to say tournament fishing is not ethical and all these things, but we do kind of all have our own ethics and things we think about. But it's like, man, come on. Like it's a bad look. You're taking fish out of the water to get a picture at freaking Chick-fil-A and then put it back in. Like, not super cool. And you know what? People make mistakes too, right? Like we've all done stupid things that we wish we didn't do.
100%.
Anyways. It's my thoughts.
Yeah. No, again, it's not knocking any certain person. It's the trend that it's just, come on now. But yeah, no, totally agree with it. And especially like in the state of the industry that we're in, we're always trying to push for more positivity in this sport. So it's, let's keep that train rolling, because we already have people like the TMZs that they won't cover anything about fishing unless somebody cheats, and that's just we already got those deflectors and things like that we got to deal with. But regardless, that aside, we have a great show today with Mr. Taylor Watkins talking about a whole bunch of fun bassing that is going down as we speak. So I think with that being said, the last thing we do have right now, Omnia is not running too many sales at this moment for this week anyway. But what they are doing is if you're an Omnia Pro member, take advantage, go down to the very bottom of that page and click on the little tab that says Pro Sales. This is only sales that are available to Pro members. So you probably can't even see this tab if you're not a Pro member. And right now, big sales on Depths, Duo Realis, Daiwa, Megabass, Arc Rods, Reels, Abu Garcia, like big savings on some of this stuff. And I'm sure a lot of heads turned whether they're driving in their truck. They probably looked at the screen, they heard Depths, and they're like, wait,
those things do go
talking
on
about
sale.
shits?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they can go on sale. Go take advantage if you're already a Pro member. Go take a look, see, and see what you can save some money on. But fellas, anything else before we get into our show with Mr. Taylor Watkins?
Let's rip.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. Without further ado, Mr. Taylor Watkins. All right, folks, we are with no stranger to the Serious Angler Podcast Network as a whole, Mr. Taylor Watkins. Taylor, what's going on, homie?
Not much. How are y'all guys? Doing good?
Everything's all good up here. Yeah. Good up here for the most part. Sounds like everything is somewhat kosher in tornado land. We were talking a little bit offline, but sounds like everything's all good down by you guys.
Apparently I left Alabama about 9 years ago and just brought Tornado Alley to Tennessee, Kentucky, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's awful.
Does it seem like it's moving more east, like year by
North
year?
and East, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely moving. It's like a little more north too. I don't know. It's been wild though. I was telling Bailey before we jumped on here that I've lived in Oak Ridge, Tennessee for 9 years, and I can't remember ever us having a tornado warning or tornado anything. And this year, I think we've had 4 tornado warnings. It's like Oak Ridge, take cover. It's like, holy smokes, what is going on?
What?
Yeah, I was reading something earlier today that I think we're 250 tornado warnings ahead of last year already at this point. But I was also reading another weather deal that North America as a whole is about 8 degrees cooler this year in totality over last year.
Yeah.
Is that
that
whole La Nina thing you were talking about, Andy, a while ago?
No, because that's done. We're in a neutral pattern. So I'm not sure what's causing this.
Huh.
It should be warmer than normal in a neutral pattern.
Interesting. Well, first thing, we lost Deacon. So if anyone's watching, yeah. I think Deacon's experiencing technical difficulties. He had enough of the tornado talk. But yeah, we had like a record year for tornadoes here in New York too, which was wild. I got a screenshot from last year of the tornado tracker. It was like 2 miles from our house up here, which is pretty gnarly. But I saw something too. Like there's some weird stuff happening around the world. Like Antarctica or whatever apparently has like some 2 billion more tons of ice on it compared to last year. Like they're accumulating ice now. So it's just like, who knows what the heck? I mean, it kind of lost my hope that we would lose New York City, but it is what it is. Maybe someday. But apologies to my New York City folk. It's not you. It's just it's the taxes.
Well, you know what happened? All those people, if New York City goes under, gets displaced, and the taxes just get moved elsewhere.
Yeah, so. It's we just make a contract. They go to Jersey. We don't want to keep them. Well, either way, that tangent being done. Yeah. Have you been out on the water? What's been the kind of the fishing report around your neck of the woods in Tennessee here in end of May?
It's been an odd year. I mean, just like what we were just talking about. Like the typical seasonal patterns of them pulling up shallow and doing their spawning thing, and then getting on like secondary stuff and a little shad spawn and bluegill, spawn in action and stuff. It's like, I don't know, with the cooler weather, the shad spawn didn't really happen. I think, I don't know if I know it's gonna happen, but I don't think it's really been warm enough for that. And then kind of even like the bluegill were kind of slower to, that first full moon in May, we didn't really see a really good bluegill, push. And so what happened is a ton of those fish just skipped all that stuff and went straight out deep. Like it was wild. Like, and I say deep, I mean relative term deep, like
Offshore-ish.
offshore-ish, like longer points, some offshore schools, stuff like that, where typically, especially where I'm at, that's more of a June, type thing. And then it's like now they've kind of transitioned a little bit and kind of coming back shallow a little bit, so it's been weird. We had a lot of rain, a lot of high current. I don't know if any of y'all watched the NPFL last week at Douglas, but it was 3 feet low a week and a half or 2 weeks before they got there, and then it was like 2 or 3 feet high when they got there. So really a big push of water, up, and it seemed like those fish were out and kind of heading that way. Like I did a little thing for them, talking about it, and I kind of felt like that it was going to be more of an offshore bite, and then that rain happened and flooded those bushes, and those fish they just can't handle it, dude. Where it goes in those bushes up there, they just head straight to the bank, and get up in the bushes. So
well, that's why. It's because you said it. That's why I said, "Oh, you think that's what it's gonna be?"
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That was a fun event to watch, though. A lot of bush flipping.
Yeah, it was a cool tournament to watch. Gosh, it fired me up that I wasn't there. It's like, golly, I see Canterbury catching a 5-pounder. I'm like, gosh, I know where that is. I know what. I did that thing 4 times before he did. Like doggone it. So, but yeah, it was cool. Cool tournament to watch. But boy, it gets you fired up, makes you want to be out there.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of the premise that we want to dive into in this show is like that immediate post spawn where they may have not gotten out deep around ledges or things like that just yet. Around the country they're getting when they're done spawning, we got some mix of fry garters, you got the bluegill that are up doing their thing, and parts of the country you got your mayfly hatches and things like that. But I guess for you, like when it's starting to get post spawn, like what are the first telltale signs that you see, like when you're on the water or even heading to the lake and you're not to the lake just yet, that you can kind of get the feel of these fish are starting to move off bed, they're kind of done spawning, kind of getting them a more post spawny phase? Like what are things that stand out to you?
Like I don't know about as far as like on the way to the lake, but obviously the nightly temperatures are a huge factor. Whenever you're only getting down into it, and it's obviously it's different in different areas of the country, but where I'm at, you start getting those lows in the 70s at night, in the low 60s and to 70-degree range, and then you start getting those temperatures in the 80s and whatnot during the day. You kind of know that it's pretty well getting done. Things are tying up. You're always going to have fish. I mean, we've got places here that you can run up in rivers and stuff. They'll be spawning up until July. I've seen fish on bed in July. But you're talking about your majorities. And wherever those temperatures are, when you wake up in the morning, you just kind of got to put on like a white light sweatshirt, and it's not like you're not putting your bibs on and all that stuff, and the first thing in the morning, it's like, yeah, things are starting to progress a little bit. And then, as soon as that sun comes up, it's like, all right, I gotta get rid of this thing. It's like, those are the times that, it's getting kind of that time of the year and whatnot. And also, looking for a shad spawn, if, always got to be checking for that shad spawn. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't like fishing a shad spawn, but I do. I've had a lot of success off of it over the years. And I mean, that's one of the first things that I start looking for whenever it gets to be about May. First weekend May or so, I'm going to start looking for it. And if you can find a good shad spawn, man, it can be lights out early. What I mean? It's like, at least you can get a good baseline. You might not catch a bunch of 4 and 5 pounders, but I mean, you can put a solid baseline of, 14 to 16 pounds together in a hurry, and that's a good way. I mean, I fished, I don't know, a couple, 2 or 3 tournaments this year, and 2 of them I know for a fact I had them on my scale. It was like 1470 in the first 15 minutes of the tournament.
God.
So it's like, golly, dude, that's Yeah, I mean, that's a great feeling, it's like, now one of them, I called up to 1488 from 7:10 in the morning until 3:30, so that was, about 1 o'clock. I was pretty pissed off, but
Damn,
the second one, I've made some good adjustments, and ended up having like 18 pounds and got a top 10 in a big tournament here. And, was just missing that big bite. I just needed that 5 or 6 pounder to push me up, towards that, winning weight. I think it took right at 20 pounds to win. I had 1805. So, you know, and I didn't have a fish over 4 pounds either. I had like 390s and 380s. I think I had one at 320. So
Wow.
5 or 6 pounder, puts you right there, right in the
Yeah.
hunt, so,
It,
but with that being said, I started out with that baseline of 14, 15 pounds, and man, it makes that day just, you fish free, I mean, you can go
gamble.
flip for a little bit. If you want to go throw a frog for a while, you can. It's like, hey, I'm just looking for a couple bites, and I got all day to do it. So,
Mhm.
And it's a fun time in the midst of that
yeah.
craziness. But
Yeah.
Deke, do you guys get a shad spawn up where you're at?
It's interesting. So as far as like in Colorado, there was a couple of lakes that had shad. In Idaho, not really. Now the Columbia River in Oregon has some shad in it, but nothing like I've experienced down south, right? Nothing
Yeah.
similar to that, or at least guys don't target that. I mean, most of our bait fish are outside of shad. Now, California has some lakes with some shad in it. But again, not a ton. Like, I mean, not the way it is forage across the country outside of that. So
Yeah.
not as much of a player. I've always been jealous when I see that happening in tournaments. I've been lucky enough in some of the college stuff traveling down south to be able to experience a little bit of it, and even some of the Toyota series after college. I can remember a couple of us just like, man, this is a really cool thing. I always got spun out with like they would be there one day, then they would be gone. That was probably my frustration with it. Or like I'd roll up and it'd be white bass or something. I'd be like, what the heck? Like these were all 2 to 4 pounders yesterday. So I
Yeah.
never dialed it in, but it's always been a really neat thing to me.
Yeah, we don't really have much of anything to like kind of the same effect, like impactful up where we're at in the Northeast. Andy, you can agree on that. Like nothing where anyone's talking about, oh, we're chasing a shad spawn. Like there'll be shallow,
Yeah.
but like nothing that's really gonna drive any attention. But
they get on the wood or overhanging trees and
Floating
docks here, and it's just the water's erupting. It's just,
Yeah.
they're just rolling all over each other. And you throw a bait in there, and there's 20 of them. And they're hitting your bait. Like if you throw a spinner bait, they're just knocking your spinner bait all over the place.
It's wild to me how often you see that. Like exactly what you said. I've seen it always around floating docks, overhanging trees. It's wild to me. You just see this like just the water's just going right. But how many times have I come across that and there is no bass? And I'm like, there are
There,
tens of thousands of shad in this pocket, and I have not seen or felt a bite. Like, and then you go one pocket
Yeah.
over where there's no shad spawn going on, and there they are. And you're like, you guys missed them. Like, go one more over, you guys. Like, you'll find.
Get strong today, suckers.
Yeah. Like,
I think that's why a lot of people get frustrated with it, is because they see the shad spawn and then there's no bass on the actual shad spawn. And it takes a lot. I mean, you really got to hustle. I mean, you got to really keep moving, and they're going to tell you quick. It's going to be fast. It's going to be, you're going to make 10 casts, and you're going to get bit if they're there.
Mhm.
And if you're not getting bit, just keep running, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And and sometimes you don't find them, sometimes you don't. But one thing I have noticed is what will absolutely kill a shad spawn is a thunderstorm. If
okay.
you get a thunderstorm before, like the night before, like that afternoon before, or especially if it's midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, golly, you just well hang it up. I mean, you just as well plan B. I mean, it just, I don't know what it is about the thunder and lightning and rain, but the shad just do not do it. And I think even the fish, like, because in a shad spawn, they're up high in the water column, and I think that thunder and lightning and stuff, it just pushes them down, and I don't know. That's just something that I've noticed over the years. It's like, I'll be fired up to go, I found them, I've got them, and it'll be a thunderstorm or something the night before, I'll show up, and I mean, it's just dead.
Yeah.
But
How long would do you like that'll just ruin it for the whole day? Like you might as well just not even bother, or you
I mean,
will
I'm
be
still
really
gonna
reset
go.
the next day.
I'm still gonna go try. At least for the first 20 or 30 minutes. Because I mean, it's not gonna hurt to go try for 20, 30 minutes. But most of the time, you might catch one or two. That are just kind of stragglers hanging around or whatever. But that really good, like I was talking about having 15 pounds in 10 minutes. It just doesn't seem to happen very much.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I wanted to turn this conversation back to real fast on the Shad Spawn is like for guys like us, that don't have much of an emphasis on the Shad Spawn or they're visiting, traveling south to go fish, something like that. Like for the Shad Spawn, obviously it's pretty straightforward. Like shad being busted on, feeding on, like what are the high percentage areas though that you go look for a shad spawn? Because people might hear about it, but they're like just looking around at random bank when they're missing out on what might be the good focal point. So I guess what high level, like what is a good place to go look for a shad spawn where bass might be on?
So one big thing is if it's early, like that early May, you want to look more in the creeks, more in the backs of the creeks where that warmer water is. That's where it's going to start happening first. And then as the year progresses, like now we're getting typically, in a normal setting, we're getting in that June time frame. You're going to be kind of more on the main lake points. Like Deacon was talking about, overhanging bushes, anywhere that you got like a bluff with some overhanging bushes. I mean, that's perfect. Obviously, riprap, rock. They like a lot of rock. Anything that's hard that's in the water that they can bump up against and knock their eggs out. Be it docks, wood, overhanging branches, riprap. And we've actually got two types of shad here. We've got the gizzard shad and the threadfin. Those threadfin are going to be obviously shallower on the overhanging stuff on the docks and all that. Now the gizzard shad spawn is going to happen out on like those clay points, those long points that stick out into the lake. And it's a little different type of bite. It's more of a big swim bait kind of deal, like a 6-inch swim bait or even like a 3/4 ounce chatterbait. And then like Milliken couple years ago in the Open did really well in Texas on the gizzard shad spawn throwing what was that thing? The hog wall?
Carolina rig?
Carolina rig. Yeah. Just a big bait on a Carolina rig, and just dragging it. But it kind of represents the same thing. You got those wads of gizzard shad roaming around and stuff, and then you got a big profile bait. So, but yeah.
Isn't that how Livesey won a couple years back? Was that giant saltwater spook? Isn't that on a gizzard shad spawn?
On in Texas at a Fork?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there was probably some of that involved. It's kind of clay points kind of deal, and that seems to be a big Texas thing. Is those hard clay points, but it also happens around here as well. When we've got big gizzard shad too.
Yeah, this seems like a really fun time of year just because you have so many. Like you're not going to catch the fish at their heaviest time of year.
Yeah,
but I feel like this is a fun time because you have so many different methods of like fish triggering on bites, whether it's they're coming off bed in the post spawn where they just start feeding on things like crazy shad spawns, hatches, things like that. And that's one thing I would love to get into is the Mayfly hatch. And do you guys get that much?
No, that's another one that I
there's no fun in the Pacific Northwest.
Apparently not. Like
just kokanee eaters. That's all.
That's right. We get kokanee, perch. I will say this: the closest thing I've ever experienced to a Mayfly hatch, and I would love to hear if you guys have ever come across this. It's not. Well, it really was similar in western Nebraska when I was growing up in Colorado. I lived in Nebraska for a summer for an internship, but we fished a lot of tournaments in western Nebraska where kind of Milliken, well, he's more east, but anyways, these lakes, dude, would have a ridiculous this time of year too. Like we're starting now into through June, a dragonfly hatch, and not a hatch, but just dragonflies would be going to the water to spawn. And I'm talking fat ones, like that big, right? Like 4 inchers. And these bass, like you would see 3 and 4 pounders, 5 pounders, jumping like trout out of the water, like 2-3 feet out of the water, super clear water, and they'd come up and smoke a dragonfly and just like belly flop back into the water. And it was the coolest thing. And so like same deal, right? Like frog, Senko, like frog, 4-inch Senko. Guys would try the actual dragonfly baits and things, right? But like you would just be fishing around the pads and tules, like very frog lake, right? Like shallow largemouth lake. And one would, you just watch dragonfly land, and one would come up and miss it or hit one, and you'd just fire as fast as you could over there, and you'd catch them like every time. And they were all, it was super cool, like 2 to 5 pounders, and they would just absolutely crush. I caught a 7-13. That was my biggest largemouth for a while out there on a frog. Same deal. Early morning, they were chasing dragonflies, like just really, really cool, but not anything like a mayfly situation, but just, I've never seen that anywhere else yet. The only places that I've heard of it happening also is in the West, some desert lakes in New Mexico. And I would assume that would be the same way in Arizona, but same deal, like super hot, nasty time of the year. And dragonflies just like going off, and these shallow largemouth that could see would just wait for one of those dragonflies and just.
So what you're saying is there actually is a use for lunker hunt.
That's what I'm saying. Like I've tried to make my own for a while now. Like now with all this dice and everything with the like strands going through stuff, you know what I mean? I thought about it, like take a 4-inch Senko and then just run a couple strands through it and fire that thing out on a spinning rod.
Yeah.
Like that would totally work.
Could you imagine like your Senko flying through the air, and before it hits the water, one jumps up and grabs it?
That, like I've had them, like I've had it, and there's timber and stuff in these lakes too, in some of these spots, and mats would get stuck on them and whatever else. I've had like
hanging it up
exactly like sitting there shaking it over a tree and like I'm like, oh my god, just wicked.
Some Discovery Channel type
I
stuff.
know, like once you get into like South Dakota and North Dakota too, I'm sure this happens there, but like hopper hatches, right? Like I'm sure there's insane grasshopper hatches too out there.
Yeah.
Because I know that's a big thing for the trout fishery once you start getting into the Rockies and that area.
Totally.
So that's really cool.
Well, there's like all these fly guys too around here, right? Like the Stonefly Hatch. It's like giant. I think that's what they are. But there's big flies, right? That like hit the water, and these browns are coming. And it's like, man, but I've never seen anything like it. Like you said, Bailey, if you had the slow-mo guy and the right equipment, like you could get some wicked footage of bass looking like acrobats. Like they just came out of the water like crazy. Like you would be like, did you see that? Like that wasn't a carp. No, that was a 4-pounder, just like full belly flop. Like, it was cool.
Knocking themselves out for a high protein snack.
Right. It's like, guys, there's got to be something else. But anyways, I don't have any experience on a Mayfly hatch. I've never experienced one. Would love to know just like the baseline, Taylor. Like, when does it start? I guess would be the starting place.
Yeah. So basically, a Mayfly hatch. It sounds like yours would be better because then they're not inside your shirt, going up your nose, your ears. Because when the Mayfly hatch happens, it is wild. I mean, if you get into a pile of them, I mean, I have seen it so much in Tennessee and Alabama. Probably the biggest one I've ever seen was on Lake Gunnersville. But I mean, literally the trees will be sagging. I mean, you'll just look into the trees and they're literally
the weight.
They're just, the weight of them. And you just hit them with something. I mean, it's just like a cloud erupts and they're going everywhere. You know, they're all over your boat. They're flying in your mouth. They're going in your nose. I mean, and then the bluegill just go insane, you know. So basically, from what I know about it is, I don't know all the science part of it, but basically, I think they come out of the ground in the water and then come up.
Emergers.
Yeah, emergers from the ground in the water and then come up to the surface and then into the trees. And then once they do their thing, they die. Like, so it's like a one-time deal. And then they just reproduce every year. I guess the larvae drops back into the water again, and then they float, like it'll float downstream or whatever, and then settle into an area. So basically, as far as that goes, it's mainly what you're really. I haven't really seen. I've seen some bass eat.
I was going to say, are the bass eating that, or are they eating the bluegill?
they're eating the bluegill. They're eating the smaller fish that are eating the
Mayflies aren't
more
very
so.
big. I mean, they're like, I'm sure they would eat it,
Yeah,
right? Like if a mayfly lands.
And some of them get pretty big,
Okay.
like 2-3
Yeah.
inches, maybe 4 inches.
Yeah, but typically, I mean, obviously I have seen like some smaller bass eating the mayflies themselves, but mostly they're targeting the bluegills and stuff that are they're feeding on them. And where I have seen it probably the best is like bluff walls. I don't know why, but like steeper bluff walls, especially where it comes to like a end, like a bluff wall end, and it kind of flattens out a little bit. They just cover,
Explain an
And
end for people who maybe haven't fished bluff walls.
so where it transitions from, where the river system is coming down and it makes a curve in the river system and the water's actually hitting the bank, will typically make a bluff wall. It's cut over the years, it's cut all the sediment out and everything, and you got a bluff wall. Well, eventually that bluff wall is going to come down and that curve is going to end. And when that curve ends, the water spreads out. It's not as strong, and it's going to dump that sediment out right there. And that's where you got like bigger chunk rock, and it kind of transitions from a steep straight down bank to more of a 45. And then even a lot of times it'll go into a flat, after it spreads out for a little bit. So typically the best area is, sometimes you'll find them on that bluff wall, like the steepest part. I mean, the boat will be sitting in 30 foot of water, and there's fish are in, 1.5 2 foot. They're just cruising up through there looking for bluegill.
Okay.
But it really seems like that edge where it transitions from, super steep to, where your boat's sitting in, it might be 12, 15, foot of water, but they've got some cover, some structure to sit against, right there against the bank. Maybe you got some treetops laying in the water or something like that they can kind of hide and ambush a little bit too. But typically what I like to do, it's kind of like a frog, swim jig, and vibrating jig.
Okay.
That's kind of my go-to on.
So moving for the most part with all this stuff.
I like moving baits, yeah. Even like flipping a jig, skipping a jig under the overhangs and stuff would be pretty good. But like as far as slowing down and throwing a worm or something like that, it's just my style to just kind of cover water. I like swimming jig, throwing a frog, and covering water. Now, if I get into a really good area and I know there's some good quality there, I'll slow down and pitch around a little more, But mostly the frog, swim jig, and vibrating jig is going to be my main go-to.
Okay.
But typically, like in the good thing about the Mayfly Hatch is it can be an all-day deal. It's not just Shad Spawns a morning time deal. Mayfly Hatch, you can do it all day. I mean, you start getting shade lines, it'll push the fish up even closer against the bank. Those overhanging branches, you can skip under there, and stuff. They've got shade, they've got food, cool water in the shade. I mean, it's really good. A lot of guys like to go down through there and hit the bushes. Like they'll literally just get on the troll motor on 100 and just make into the bushes and
not fun.
and then run back down and then start fishing. I've done that before. That works really well. And then some guys like to just kind of skip down through there as they're going. But it seems like you get them stirred up. I mean, you hit those bushes a couple of times. Those bluegill, it's like literally throwing out dog food into a farm pond. They just start going wild. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, this fish pellets going into the water. So and they gets those bluegill fired up and really active and moving and really gets the bass excited. And so then you can just turn around and book it back down to where you started. And then just fish your way up through there. So.
One of the things I learned from our buddy Caleb Bell, who's a guide down on Chick, was if you have two buddies in the boat and you're both throwing frogs, is you get one guy to just bomb your frog into the tree, shake the tree with your frog, and the other guy skips under there, and that's just all chaos breaks loose. But yeah, that's an interesting method to go with too. You said he brings a bucket of like gravel and just takes rocks and throws it
just chucking rocks at trees. Now, I was curious in a tournament setting what the regulations would be there. Like, is there anything against throwing stuff to get fish reactive? Like, I don't think so, but I don't know.
You got the recreational fisherman just like blowing a 12 gauge shotgun into the bush and just blowing it to hell, right?
I mean, you send a frog in there and get it wrapped up one time and go shake it real good. I mean, things are about to happen. I'm telling you. Like,
So
that's when they get in your nose and all the good stuff. It's like then you get one in your shorts and you really got live action going on.
goodness, live
Yeah.
action.
I've witnessed Alex Rudd get caught into one of the mayfly trees, and you guys know his beard, and it was pretty humorous watching how many mayflies are stuck in his beard after that.
That's a nightmare, actually.
It was, yeah. It's like that scene out of
Mothman.
the Grinch where he just lets all the moss go out and they just devour the Christmas stockings or whatever. It was a scene out of that. It was interesting.
So
Yeah.
one question I do have comparing this, I like this show setup just because we're talking about kind of the 3 post-spawn tactics when bass are hitting these kind of multiple feeding windows. But are there situations similar to the shad spawn where there'll be a pile of mayflies but no bass around and no bluegill around?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
yeah.
covering water.
A lot of times the bluegill are pretty on point.
Okay, bluegill are there. They're
yeah. I mean, a lot of times the bluegill are there.
That's their Christmas, bro.
Yeah, this is the best time of year. They're like, this is what we look for, right?
Yeah. They're pretty well. They're good scavengers. I mean, they're going to find any opportunity they can.
It's worth the risk for the gamble when it comes to mayflies.
Oh,
willing to lay it out on the line for that 5-pound underneath.
Yeah. But the bass, I fished a lot of mayfly hatches and not caught before. But a lot of times it seems like when I've not really caught on them, it was like there was something else going on. Like there was still a shad spawn going on a little bit, or maybe it was hot and there wasn't a lot of, whatever, and they've already pushed way out, or something like that. But it seems like you find that later in the year, like that July, August.
Okay.
It seems to be a little bit better to me because those fish have kind of been out. They've kind of done that deal a little bit, and then they start kind of cruising around looking for something else, and obviously, in my part of the world, July, August is typically a pretty
miserable month,
tough time of year. I mean, not miserable, but it gets tougher, and so something like that. I mean, you're not going to catch them like we're talking about, like on the shad spawn where you're catching, 15, 20, 30 fish in, an hour. It's going to be more of a hunting, pecking kind of deal where I'm catching, 10 or 15 a day, but I'm probably going to have a better quality because they're bluegill eaters. So,
how many times have you seen the bluegill spawn coincide with a mayfly hatch? So they're like, everything's going on.
I mean, you got bluegill spawn, it seems like once a month on full moon. So, yeah, I mean, it happens, but typically that mayfly hatch is happening in kind of more main lake area is what I've experienced. Not so much back in the creeks as much. So, if you get a good flat area that you get some bluegill spawning, you might get some action, but it seems like that main mayfly hatch is kind of on that main lake stretch, and the bluegill are kind of moving up on the flat to kind of spawn.
Fair enough. So, the third part of the post spawn is the bluegill spawn. That's part of the reason why I was asking if it ever coincides. But where do you look for bluegill spawns? Like back at creeks you mentioned, but what are the signs besides a full moon that you look for to target bass on a bluegill spawn?
And sometimes if you get into a really good one, you can smell them. I mean, you can smell it. It's like you get that fishy smell. You're like, golly, it smells fishy in here. Probably be looking for bluegill spawn going on somewhere. But the best thing that I have found by far, 0 to none, is Humminbird 360. I mean, I keep Humminbird 360 on my boat specifically to find bluegill spawn. I mean, it's
like little potholes.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no doubt. I mean, there is no doubt whenever it's happening, and you look down, and you're like, oh, well, okay, there they are. But it seems like anywhere that there's like, I mean, they'll do it on main lake,
really,
flat, and stuff like that. Anywhere there's a little bit of gravel, want a big chunk rock. They're not really going to do it around that. But anywhere there's like sandy, gravel, a lot of these places that like Gunnersville, Nickajack, places like that where you got a lot of grass, they'll do it a lot more on the main lake. The places like Watts Bar, Fort Loudon, Chickamauga, I mean, you'll see it a little bit on the main lake, but it seems like they're kind of tucked in somewhere on those kinds of lakes where there's not as much grass. It seems like, I don't know, Gunnersville is so much different because it's just big flats, and you get up in that 4-foot range. Even now the water's getting clear on Gunnersville so much that, I mean, they're in that 4 to 6 foot range, whereas they used to be in that 2 to 3 foot range. But it seems like now they're kind of able to bump out there a little bit deeper and still do their thing, which I really think is kind of helps the lake a little bit. those bass can kind of sit out there a little bit deeper and still have a good meal, just run up there and get them whenever they get hungry. But I've seen them on Chickamauga more in the pockets and stuff, more in the kind of off the main lake just a little bit. But I've seen on Chickamauga actually pulled down, watched like an 8 to 10 pounder. I mean, I don't know how big it was, but practicing for a tournament one time, saw one just cruising around some bluegill beds, just kind of backed up a little bit and pulled down. Dude, he'd just chill out, just kind of cruise around like a shark, and they'd all be chilled out, and he'd sit over there, and all of a sudden you'd see her just kind of turn up. She'd get all fired up and just get her one, turn around, go back. Like she got hungry and was like, all right, time to eat. And I mean, she'd just run up there and snag one, and they'd all freak out. And then, I don't know, a minute later, they'd all start doing their donuts again. It's like, all right, Johnny's gone.
For now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. I need some narration on that one. That's pretty good. Now you mentioned, I wanted to bring this up too when you're talking about 360 on this, is because Sniper has now put out a new bracket for the trolling motor that want to have 360 if you want on one side, but also a sniper pole on the front of that. Is that anything that you're going to be utilizing, or like what you would utilize, say, like if you're partner fishing in a tournament, things like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've got the 360 mount on my boat. Now I run my sniper pole at the console, for scouting mostly. I actually talked to Trey today. He actually, I think he just got his all rigged up this past weekend, which he's had a pole on his boat on the trolling motor, forever. And he actually added the 360 to it this weekend. And we were actually talking about, he was fishing this weekend and kind of got into an area and just started kind of flipping a creature bait around, and obviously was using live too. And he was using his pole and he saw a fish and flipped over to it with his creature bait, and he said ate it immediately, and he put his power poles down, caught it, and it was like 3 pounder. And he stood up. Well, he's never had 360 before, he was just playing with it. So he looked down, and sure enough, it was bluegill beds all the way around the boat. He was like, holy smokes. Well, he couldn't see them with live. He saw the fish, the fish just cruising and just flipped to it, but he didn't realize why that fish was just cruising around. Well, then once he put 2 and 2 together with using the live and the 360, it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. And then he just kind of started scanning around looking for fish cruising, and they were in, 4 foot of water he couldn't quite see with his eyeballs. So he was using his sniper pole he was just pulled down, scanning around, and whenever he would see one cruising, he'd just flip a creature bait to it, and it'd eat it almost every time because they look like a bluegill. So
it's the nice thing about bluegill beds. If the largemouth are near them, they usually eat pretty easily.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty automatic. It's like fishing on the moon, especially with 360 and bluegill beds.
Yeah.
Is that something I imagine hopefully the Pacific Northwest gets the bluegill spawn, Deacon?
Yeah, certainly, right? Like definitely get that one.
No.
Yes, we got something.
There's some fun, I promise, in the Northwest.
I was full-heartedly expecting a no.
That
like, no, not that
bluegill
either.
lives everywhere, man. The bluegill spawn happens.
Only
Yeah, I know.
I love it. But no, it does happen. I enjoy it so much. I've found exactly like Taylor's saying, 360, putting your forward facing into whatever mode they're called. They're all called different things now with different brands. Absolutely makes such a difference looking for them. And yeah, it happens, and it'll continue happening now through all summer long, right?
Like, so you'll do that. You'll like cruise shallow with it on either landscape or perspective,
Absolutely.
and look for bluegill beds.
Yeah. So, I mean, right. Like I still think bar none, 95, 99% of the time I'm running forward facing in regular down mode or forward mode, even shallow, just to see those fish. And, but if you are able to run 2 or a 360 or flip it over and then flip it back quickly, especially during practice for tournament, I think there's an absolute benefit to doing that. You can see them so well. You can see them swimming in the beds, and then see those largemouth kind of around those things. Where I got onto this was actually in a Bass Nation regional qualifier in Arkansas, and this was right when forward facing, like, guys were starting to utilize the side mode. This was 5-7 years ago or something, and I flipped it over and was like, oh my gosh, like, it was just cool to see. I mean, I could see all the bluegill running around everywhere, right? And those bass specifically. So yeah, I think it's a super benefit to finding bluegill beds. And then I don't generally, when I'm going back to fish a bluegill bed, I'm more of a popper, Senko, popping frog, those kinds of things, and getting it just in front of and around those bass. And it's cool in clear water. I think that's what I really enjoy about the West. I mean, and anywhere where there's clear water is like you can see how these bass set up. They're either cruising around the beds, or like there's a log or a stick that's this thin, right, somewhere next to the beds, and there's like a 4-pounder just like, and you're like, dude, you're not hiding. Like, what? You know, like, but he's like, yes, something to rest against. It's a piece of cover. And he's just sitting there
I'm a
watching
chameleon.
all the bluegill screw around, and he's just waiting for one to kind of like pop over a little the wrong way.
That's funny. It's like your 100-pound dog trying to act like a 6-inch piece of grass is gonna hide
It's
him
just
from.
like, isn't that
Yeah.
wild though? Like my team partner Lauren and I
See
were having this conversation the other day, and this is an absolute tip out there for anybody fishing shallow. It's like, how many times is there this beautiful bush or tree stump that you're like, oh yeah, here we go, roll into this pocket, I'm gonna catch a big one off that. And then there's like one blade of grass or like one tule, like not a patch, like one tule on its own. And that's where the fish is.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? like this is a wonderful home right over here. But he's like, nah, I'm going right there. I want to live in the streets, baby. Get me to the edge.
Stay on the streets. Go to your home.
So back to that mount that you were talking about, Bailey, that we just released, something that we played with a little bit this winter, and I really would like to play with it this summer a little bit, especially on these bluegill beds, is and basically it's the same thing, but we've just got a pipe instead of the 360, and then putting the 62 live transducer in perspective mode on that pipe, separate from the trolling motor head. So you got it on your trolling motor head and you're moving your trolling motor around, you know, it's constantly swiping around, you're trolling around, you know, it's looking all over the place. When you put it on that dedicated pole sticking off of the trolling motor mount from Sniper, you are basically doing a live 360, you know, at this span right here, and it's staying locked into that position. You know, when you turn your trolling motor, it's not turning. It's just literally just locked into one position. And then, you know, as you turn your boat, you know, it's panning back and forth. But something about it being locked into that position, it seems like it just stays so much clearer, and you're able to, I don't know, your mind just doesn't play tricks on
Details
you
it.
much. The
Yeah.
detail is so much better, and you're just kind of cruising along, you know, and you're just gathering information as you're going. Now, obviously, you're not seeing behind you or anything like a full 360, but you know, whatever that span is, what is that, like 45 or whatever that it does?
Yeah, it's pretty dang wide. Yeah.
It's pretty wide. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing definitely, you know,
Like 120 or something like that.
Yeah, off, you know, of your boat. You know, I mean, you're covering a decent amount of
And you can move it, right?
area, especially with that 62. You can run it out there, you know, 65 feet or so in perspective mode, and it's something that, you know, if somebody doesn't want to buy another unit and you've already got Garmin or something like that, and you don't have a Humminbird, this is a great option to just put that separate pole on there and it in a fixed position, and it works just like 360. It's just live.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We'll be sure to link that down below for the folks that want to take a little look-see at something like that. But I think the last thing to hit on post-spawn wise is some fry garters, which I think are some of my favorite type of fish to go after because they're so dumb.
We like
Always
fish. I like dumb fish.
I think we all do. We all prefer dumb fish. I don't know anybody that doesn't prefer dumb fish.
Yeah.
So very interesting. This year, some things I've been seeing is a lot more with using live, a lot more fry garters out in that 8 to 10 foot range. Whether it be on stumps or grass or just anything really, like used to, whenever I used to think of fry garters, I just thought on dock post and things like that, they'd be right on the surface. And I mean, actually you'd probably see the fish just about it as you pitched over to them or whatever. But with the advancements in live, we have really learned a lot about fry garters out, on points a little deeper. I think a lot of the old timers would catch them on Carolina rig, stuff like that in the past. But nowadays you can really target them with a drop shot and stuff. And I haven't really noticed with the fry garters though, like quality. Seems like it's a good way to make a good baseline, kind of like the Shad Spawn deal, like I was talking about, where you can get a good baseline of, in a 5-fish tournament of 14 pounds or so, but kind of seems to be your max. You're not catching those. You catch 4-pounder every now and then, but those 5 to 7 pounders just don't seem to be out there fry garden, but that's just my experience here recently.
So a really cool nugget that we got on the recent show with Roy Hawk is something he's found, at least in his experience on some of the lakes more out west, but how he will find a big female that's up shallow with the fry and then watch her from being up shallow push the fry out deeper, more offshore, especially if there's a piece of cover nearby, push them deeper. And then you think maybe that's just because he spooked them or something else. He'll come back the next day and they're still down there deeper with the fry offshore. So he thinks that a lot of fish will come up, spawn, and once their fry's there and capable of actually moving, they will almost corral their fry deeper, which is like when you go back to, like, was it Murray last year? Was it 2 years ago in the elites? You watched Rivette in the first day smoke them an 8 to 10 on stumps or whatever with that are fry guarding. It makes you wonder if maybe they had actually spawned in 3 to 4 up on the bank and then later push those fish down deeper. That was something really cool that Roy said he noticed on multiple occasions. So you're not the first one to say that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that I've really noticed over the past 2 years or so. And I've noticed a lot of fish spawning in that 6 to 8 foot range as well lately. Which, advancements in technology, right? Like I've felt that way on some of these lakes around where I'm at, because you just don't see fish on bed that much.
Not those great big ones.
You do some, but it's like, I know there's a lot more fish in this lake, that I'm seeing. So they've got to be spawning out here where I can't see them. And man, I've tried for a long time to just drag, Carolina rigs and stuff like that, and I catch some every now and then, but with the advancements in technology now, we actually can target those fish a little bit better and catch some of them. I know some people don't agree with that particularly, but you're catching the same fish if you're dragging a Carolina rig than if you're pitching a drop shot to them.
You're just catching more.
Bait wise, let's say for both the deep fry garters that you're finding or the shallow fry garters, what are you pitching in first?
Oh gosh, first. I mean, it depends on the day, but my main cycle is going to be obviously a drop shot, a Nico, some type of Nico worm. I like a bigger Nico worm, like a Magnum hit worm or a Magnum trick worm or something like that. And then, gosh, I really like to throw a big jig to them, just like a 5/8 ounce jig, and
Hit
just
'em in the face.
big profile, big legs, just bulky. I mean, if I could make that thing be that big, I'm gonna make it. I'm not cutting anything off of my trailer, anything. I'm just threading it straight onto the jig and gonna throw it to them. And it seems like that big profile, just they can't hardly stand it. It's either they think it's a bluegill or a big crawdad. Especially if they think it's a bluegill and they're trying to get their fry. They can't handle that.
Do you ever mix in a jerkbait at all?
I did some this year. It seemed like pre-spawn, like I got on them really good, throwing a jerkbait over these fish and stuff, same kind of areas. And then it seemed like after they spawned and got on the fry garters, they would just follow. I couldn't really, I couldn't get them to commit to the bait. It was like the jerkbait was getting away and moving away from them. So it was like they're like, all right, it's going away, and then they would just go back to wherever they were, and then I'd cast it over them again. They would come up to it, and then as it would get a certain length away from them, they would just give up on it, Whereas like the drop shot or the jig or whatever, like you pitch it in there and it get like it's there, and it's like, okay, this thing's not leaving. So
I want to go throw that freaking big crab Medusa looking thing that Kyoyo was throwing on Lake Fork at them and see what they think of that. I think the damn Kraken's coming down on their fry.
The damn Kraken.
They'll definitely eat it.
They will eat it.
Purely out of
I feel like just especially fry garters, like just something big and obnoxious that just it works. I don't know. Like you mentioned like earlier, Deacon, like a frog. Like a frog's a great fry garter bait too, especially a popping frog that can kind of stay in place a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. So actually real quick on that, the bigger Nico, are you putting that on casting gear then?
No, more of a 7.3. I've got like a 7.3 medium heavy. It's like a heavy drop shot rod. And so but I will put it on like 15-pound braid and 12 or 14-pound leader.
Oh, so you're jacking them then.
Oh, yeah. I don't play.
I don't play, he says.
I don't play with things very much. I like them to get in the boat.
Don't blame me.
Get in here. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah,
Andy
awesome.
Bailey, any other baits that you guys like to throw?
Oh man, I've actually had fun with fry garters, like when they're on dock poles, like wooden dock posts with a buzz bait. Like you just slowly crawl it as slow as you can and bounce it off something. It seems like as soon as it hits that dock pole, they erupt on it. Like it's like I'm guilty. Like I love a buzzbait bite, but I find myself only throwing it really during the shad spawn. And if you've never experienced smallmouth eating a buzzbait, there's nothing like it.
I bet that is glorious.
It's electric.
Yeah. Very nice.
Electric.
Yeah. And then a big jig too. Like jig is so much fun on that as well.
Yeah, dude, it's so much fun throwing a glide at them too. Glide is awesome. I've never seen a largemouth get someone pissed off in his life when you throw a big glide bait near him.
Yeah.
I'm not the great at catching them with it, but I'll chase it.
Ball, like it just stops. And they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah, come over here. This year though, dude, I want to freaking because we're not obviously there just yet here in New York, but I want to throw big rats at them, see what they do to it. I think that would be pretty dang fun. I don't know. Whatever they'll eat in New York, I mean, they're pretty dumb. I feel like fry gutters will eat just about anything.
That is one good thing.
Go ahead.
That's one good thing about where y'all live is like you can
catch fish,
test and play with baits that, like here it's like, yeah, I can go test a bait, but I might not get a bite for 2 days. It's like it's like, oh, you want to test your equipment? Okay, well, you got to spend a month out here to get 4 bites to figure out which one you want. Whereas where y'all are at, it's like you can pretty well find somewhere to go. If you want to learn something, just throw it. You're going to get some bites and kind of figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Our sample group is much better, but then again, you take it down south to smart fish, and you're like, wait a second, I thought this works.
Fair point.
Like, dang, okay, I gotta be a little more calculated with this stuff.
Yeah.
That's why the basics work everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's true, tried and true. That's for dang sure.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, we got anything left for Taylor before we wrap this sucker up?
Man, I don't think so. I think this
Taylor?
is a great breakdown of everything, kind of post spawn, all these different categories that are happening right here, right now, and will keep happening, especially for the guys in the north as we get into late summer.
Yeah. I guess I'll end it with this, Taylor. The last question is which of these from like Mayfly Hatch, Bluegill Spawn, Shad Spawn do you think produces the biggest bass?
Oh, the biggest? It'd have to be the bluegill beds. Some of the biggest fish that I've seen have been on bluegill beds, with my eyes, obviously, have been on bluegill beds. I mean, you get a big bluegill eater, she's heavy and fat, and big, and not afraid to eat a big shell cracker.
Yeah. She gonna gorge.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, dude, is there anything the folks need to know before we wrap the sucker up, whether with Sniper or with Omega?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the support. Sniper's been great. I know we've got a lot of people that watch on here that have supported us and got Sniper poles and everything, and would really appreciate anybody checking out Omega. Tackle business is it's tough right now, so any support that anybody wants to give and try out some baits and get you some big jigs and some swim jigs and try some of these techniques and stuff, spinner baits and whatnot on the Shad Spawn and any things that we've talked about, I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out, send me an email, or if you got any questions or anything, just feel free. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, everything. Feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, we'll put all the links to all Taylor's stuff down below in the description for you guys. And good time to be pimping out some lead jigs right now. That's for sure compared to tungsten.
Yeah.
But I'll say to end with that, dude, they need to check out the new and I'm just gonna say it out here, but the pop lock and drop it mount from Sniper.
The PDL
mount, baby.
Pop, drop, and lock it, buddy. It's
come on.
On a serious note, man, that thing it really is. We've had a lot of really good success out of that. I would say I get a message probably twice a week or more of just random, just, hey, I want to tell you that I absolutely love this thing. It was like y'all were reading my mind. So been really successful for us and super happy about that thing.
The greatest comment I saw on that one, the post on the PDL mount was because for people who may not know, it's basically an arm pole that you just one-handed like pull the pin and rotate your pole however you want, inside the boat, outside the boat, full 360. Like, it's very intuitive. But in the demonstration, it was just basically stowing it and then deploying it. And the guy's like, "Oh, that's great till you hit a dock post." And it's like, until you can realize you rotate it in the boat, and like it goes this way too. That was a pretty good one. He's like, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize." Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. But yeah, definitely check that out. We'll link that down below. But fellas, anything else for Taylor? All right, Taylor, appreciate you taking the time now, brother. We'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, man. See y'all.
See
ya. All right, folks, and that is going to do it with Mr. Taylor Watkins. A lot to, I guess, unload from there, other than the fact that just, post spawn is a fun freaking time to go bassing because it's full life right now. So you got bait coming from below the surface, you got bait coming from above the surface, you got bait forming under the surface and coming above the surface and going back below the surface. So you got so much stuff happening right now.
So much bait.
So
many food sources for fish to thrive, and
it's
so much fun.
They have to.
They got to refill.
Got to make their living right now.
It's a great time to catch the ones that you typically can't catch as well. Like they're not normally as big as they should be, but I feel like it's the one time a year that fish are relatively quote unquote dumb and relatively easy to catch if you know where to target them and look. So
they got some blinders on those older fish because there's so much food around there that, you know, the right approach, right presentation, you know, they're, what Andy's saying a little bit, you can stumble into a great big one. Definitely a little bit easier. But yeah, it's a fun one, man, because you just have so many different things going on. And what I really love about it, especially on those clear water fisheries this time of year, and little plug here, though, if you're wearing those Hobie Sightmaster Plus lenses, you can see even more. But it's like an aquarium when you go up, dude. I can't tell you how many times, like when that situation's happening, clear water, where if I see a fish, I'm gonna cast at it. But for the most, I just love enjoying watching it, dude. Like just seeing all of it. Watch like a little kid in an aquarium, pretty much. You know, just watching them interact with each other. You know, it's so much you actually learn from that too. But some freaking, you got Discovery Channel up front and, you know, up close and personal. So it takes some time to slow down, appreciate these moments, because it seems like, especially, I think every angler can appreciate this, but it seems like the fun windows of getting bites, such as like the bluegill spawn, mayfly hatch, stuff like that, is over and done with as soon as it gets here. So it's appreciate it while it's there. So you only get so many of them. But I felt like Taylor dropped some pretty good nuggets for the folks today.
Totally, dude.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Learned
it sounds like a potential.
I said I learned a lot about the differences here, right? Like, kind of think sometimes we group a couple of these things, like, oh, it's the bugs, oh, it's the shad spawn. Like, all right, it's all kind of the same. They all do, and it's like, nah, there's some neat intricacies to all of this, and he did a good job breaking out the separations of each.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, folks, if you haven't already, check out some of the different socials for Taylor and Omega Custom Tackle and things like that, and obviously the new stuff that we talked about over at Sniper Marine. All of that's linked down below. But fellas, anything for the folks? Anything they should look out for coming up here, whether individually, the tournaments, things like that? Andy, I'm pretty sure you're jam-packed.
My June is pretty packed. I'm debating on if I want to run a Father's Day sale or not for the months of July and August, because I'm relatively light on the calendar there. So I guess be on the lookout for something between now and Father's Day for a sale. So we'll see.
Heck yeah. With that being said, too, coming up, we have a few different folks coming on the shows. We get set dates, but they are confirmed for shows right now. Mr. Justin Royal will be coming back on the show. We got Mr. Seth Fighter coming on the show. We have some other pretty fun heavy hitters that are going to be coming on here in the coming weeks. But we will have the Real Biology, which it was tough because it was conflicting weeks. We had hiatus on one show for the Real Biology because Steve had gone out on vacation, then I was on vacation, and then we had two shows planned that actually fell through because both guests got sick, which was an unfortunate circumstance. But the Real Biology will continue starting next week. So Real Biologies are back, and we're even going to try to crank out some episodes so people can get multiple to catch up to make for lost time. A couple Real Biologies a week actually going forward. So hopefully we can get those put together because we have some pretty spicy stuff on those shows exactly, and actually even talking about the whole science behind like the Mayfly Hatch, the bluegill spawn, shad spawn, things like that, and diving into those. So folks got that to look forward to. But as always, folks, appreciate y'all. We'll see you guys on the next one.